Okay, part 2 or part 4, whichever this becomes after I edit it together. So the democratization of music via Spotify and other streaming platforms. That gets a thumbs up from me, but as I said previously, that creates some issues, right? Because you have so much competition, it's impossible to cut through. Dave and other people have said, well, how do you cut through? Well, you appeal to your demographic group, i.e. that it's a younger platform and more younger people listen. So of course that puts anybody over 35 or 40 in a hole to begin with. Just letting you know what they're saying here, kids. And that's fine. That's fine. We're not Luddites. We're not dinosaurs. We can figure this out for ourselves. So one of the ways that Dave says that older artists can deal with this is through Patreon, and he's suspicious of NFTs as I am. I think they're just nonsense, but I'm sure someone will take me to task on that. But there are other ways like Patreon and other services that you can kind of get back some of the loyalty and support of your fan base that you may have had previous to streaming. We'll look into that later. There is an issue here, though, that I think needs to be discussed. So democratization is great, and you can say that not everybody deserves to make a living in the music business. Okay, maybe that's true. Maybe in a capitalistic society that's true. I'm not going to argue that. But you can't say that you're a champion of artists and art and say that at the same time. Can you? That's a question I put to you because it's in here. Again, don't get me wrong, I love David. He's one of my dearest friends. He's a great dude. We just have a difference of opinion on this. Not entirely, actually. I respect a lot of what he said in here. It's just that there need to be some addendums. There need to be some answers. And one of the things is, you know, we're still, like I said to Dave, I said, oh, well, you know, Spotify is 0.003 of a cent, you know, paying. He's like, well, where did you get that number? And I'm like, Spotify? I'm like, what do you mean, where did I get that number? I'm like, it used to be 0.005 of a cent, and now it's 0.003. He goes, oh, well, that's an aggregate. An aggregate of what? And he explained to me that there's many different formulas for how they figure out based on bigger artists, smaller artists. But okay, so we don't know what the frickin' number is then, and that's part of the problem. He does not dispute, nor if you read the comments below his column, nobody disputes that Spotify should be paying more of its fair share. Aha, now we're getting somewhere. And I'm telling you, they need to be regulated. You cannot, even Dave and all the other comments are willing to concede that they don't run their business in a way that makes them friendly or appear to be magnanimous towards artists, like their posh offices and the money they spend on Premier League football teams and weapons systems and whatever. Hey, it's their money. They can do whatever they want. They stole it from us. But there's a lot to unpack here, and we should have a much longer discussion about a lot of this stuff. Now, my hour-long conversation with Dave, which is where he led me to his paper, and I read the paper after we talked, and a lot of the stuff he and I talked about was in the paper. Here are some suggestions or some holes that I found in the whole thing. I put this to Bob Olson, who's got like 60 plus years in the music business himself, and was part of the most successful label ever in music history. And I said, Bob, here, check this out. And I sent him the Lefferts letter that Dave wrote. And he's like, the problem here that nobody's addressing is, so you're taking away revenue for artists, already established artists, and you're skewing it more towards younger artists, but there are no affordable venues, right? There used to be way more affordable venues where an artist could make money, could supplant their income as an artist by playing, building an audience, building a scene, gaining fans, and it was affordable for the fans, it was affordable for the artist, and it wasn't a bear to book and create a scene. He's like, that has generally disappeared in most major cities. So, you're saying democratization, you're saying, hey, not everybody deserves to make a living, or you have to supplant what you're not making in streaming in other ways, but why don't you help us develop venues in major cities so that we can recreate the scenes that created some of the great music scenes of all time and brought us some of the best music ever. That would be cool, and that's one of Bob's arguments. Good argument, Bob. Here's two last points I'll make for this piece, for this part. Artists still have to pay for albums, or at least songs. Now, you can make them in your bedroom, but you still have to get them mixed and mastered professionally, or have your own little Phineas sitting around, genius doing everything. But even Phineas sends his stems off to get mixed and also to get mastered. He's not an idiot. He's a genius, but he's not an idiot. So my point being is that you still have to, making music, making records costs money. So democratization is great. Not everybody has the right to make a living in the music business in the current climate. Okay, fine. But music still costs money. So if Spotify is not paying its fair share, and they're not even telling us precisely what we're getting, and they're aggregating based on size of artists and whatever, and okay, but it still costs money to make records. It still costs money to exist as an artist. And who is going to pay that money? If Spotify's not paying us, and we don't have the venues to go play like we used to, affordable venues, as Bob Olson said, we're supposed to rely on Patreon to cover the costs of our records so all of you guys can have jobs in the music industry. You're all pulling in money. Someone's paying you a salary. Who pays us? That's all I'm saying. It still costs money to make music. And one last thing, in the old days, there were really smart, clever, musically in-tuned people in the industry who helped cultivate, nurture, and develop artists. If we're asked to spend all our time on, worrying about Spotify and how we've got to deal with that, and doing Patreon and doing social media, TikTok and YouTube and Instagram and whatever next comes along, who is helping us develop as artists? Who is nurturing us? And who is helping us get better, take our career further, go forward? Because those people used to exist. You can criticize the old music model as much as you want, and that's valid, but there were people who were really good at nurturing and developing talent. And I don't get that from any of this. Do you know what I mean? What do you think? Let's talk about this some more.